Make sure you get that punch on the.
Hello, everyone. We are coming to you live from Yonkers Voice in downtown Yonkers, and we have the privilege today of having Congressman Jamaal Bowman. He's taking time out of his very, very busy schedule to talk to Yonkers Voice, and I need to say right at the beginning that we are not endorsing him. We are only here to ask the questions, just facts, not preferences. And here we go. So, Congressman, good to have you here.
Good to be with you as always. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yes.
Now, how's your campaign going?
It's awesome. It's going very well. The grassroots is organized and energized and excited. We've been knocking on thousands of doors, making thousands of calls, raising good money. We cut our first ad and released our first ad this weekend, and that went very well, very, very well. So it's going well, on the grind, staying on the grind, so it's good.
Okay, now you have been, we'll cut right to the chase, because you have been plagued, which is perhaps the wrong word, but there's a lot of discussion about your issue in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And right now the war is raging on. As we all know, the war is getting more intense, and your stance on Israel has been to have a ceasefire. That we all know. Your stance has not changed. But there's another portion of this war. Palestinian refugees. You advocated back in, I think it was 2022, about the U.S. bringing in people from Gaza who basically are homeless at this point, and that there should be some means to be able to take care of them here. So can you expand on that?
Well, the first thing we advocate for is a free Palestine. We advocate for an end to the 75-year military occupation, an end to the blockade, an end to apartheid, and as we speak today, an end to the genocide. And so that's what we advocate for first and foremost. The Palestinian people are not living in an equal society. They're living under military occupation, under checkpoints and all of that. And so when we advocate for a two-station solution, that includes a free Palestine. So first and foremost, that's where we want the president to show moral clarity and moral leadership on, making sure that he's holding Netanyahu accountable and making sure that the state of Israel is moving towards a free Palestine. And right now that isn't happening, and that hasn't been happening for several decades, which is unfortunate.
But even with that being said, let's get back to the point about Palestinian refugees. Should the United States bring in people from Gaza?
Well, we are a land of immigrants, and we are a land of asylum seekers. Anyone escaping persecution and oppression and violence, the United States has always been an open home to those people. So whether they're coming from Palestine, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico, Haiti, they're coming here to contribute to our economy, which 99.9% of them are. We've always been a place to open our doors to immigrants coming here. So yeah, fully support that, and also fully support amnesty for the migrants who have been here for quite some time, contributing to our society. And so that has not changed.
But bringing in, and I'm not trying to belabor the point about the Palestinian refugees, even though it appears that I am. Palestinian refugees would have to be absorbed into an American society that may have different values. A case in point is there's a town in Michigan, Hamtramck, Michigan, under the congressional district of a fellow congressional person, Rashida Tlaib. In Hamtramck, the city council is now all Islamic. There was an issue, I believe last year, where the LGBTQ community wanted to have a pride flag on government buildings. And the city council said, no, we're not having it. So there was a problem then with the progressives in Hamtramck saying, look, we voted for you guys. You know, we voted to get you guys here. We voted to get you guys in. And now you're not allowing us to have and practice our practices here in Hamtramck. Now, to Rashida's credit, she denounced it and she said that's wrong. But it raises the issue about how much do we have to concede our values to accommodate migrants? They don't necessarily have to be Palestinian, but to accommodate migrants in our society.
So, a couple of things we need to clarify. Not all Palestinians are Muslim. That's number one. Number two, not all Muslims have an anti-LGBTQ stance. There are many Muslims here in Yonkers. There are many Muslims in Westchester County. And the district and Yonkers has always celebrated LGBTQ pride. And so when you have a democracy with a variety of voices, you always have to, negotiate and give and take on, to make sure we are uplifting and celebrating everyone's beliefs and culture and recognizing them for who they are. This is the land of freedom, justice, and equality. At least we're supposed to be. And so we have to continue to be that, and we will always continue to be that no matter what, regardless of who comes in, whatever migrants from any part of the world.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Now, one more point on the migrants, and we're going to move on. In our district right here, in Yonkers, there is the Ramada Inn, and there's been video that's circulating about an incident that happened at that Ramada Inn last week. Basically, 2 migrants were arrested. They didn't like the food, allegedly didn't like the food, and got into it with a security guard. Yonkers police were called, and 2 people were arrested. It turns out that the migrants have been here for roughly a year, and there have been 130 calls to Yonkers police to handle situations over there. When they came in, it was assumed that everything would be calm and uneventful, and it's sort of been just the opposite. So, was it misguided for the city to accept these people, or how do you reconcile this?
No, it wasn't misguided. Of course, anyone who comes in who commits a crime or commits harm needs to be held accountable. But my office has been working directly with the migrants that have come in to Yonkers, to Ardsley, and the White Plains in particular. And we've been partnering with organizations like Neighbors Link, Make the Road, Pace University, and others to help the migrants get settled, get on a pathway to a green card and social security number, and to citizenship. And we have not seen the incidents that you are referring to. We have not heard about them. So calls are not crimes. That's another thing that we need to make a clear distinction of. And so if someone commits a crime or harm, they need to be held accountable. But calls are not crimes. The other larger point here is 2 things. One, you ask any leading economist in our country, they will tell you that immigration is very healthy for the American economy for a variety of reasons. And so we need a robust, comprehensive immigration program that includes enough judges, enough social workers, enough lawyers to make sure those seeking asylum, which is a legal process, by the way, have what they need to contribute to the U.S. economy. And those who harm the economy need to be held accountable. The other part of this is the U.S. government hasn't invested enough in the U.S. economy for several decades, which is one of the reasons why we continue to struggle with affordable childcare, affordable housing, workforce development programs in areas of the community that really need it, like parts of Yonkers, like Mount Vernon, like Greenburgh, et cetera, et cetera. We spend so much money on, military conflict and the military-industrial complex and war. we spend so much money on jails and prisons, and we'll spend enough money on jobs and childcare and things that people need to improve their quality of life. So that's something that I'm working on in Congress. I'm fighting to ensure that we are investing in people and communities that have been historically left behind so that those people can be uplifted and contribute to overall society.
Okay, now speaking about investing in people and communities that can be uplifted by society, there are rumblings now in African American communities across the country. And the rumblings say, look, we were here first. Migrants are taking up our space. I mean, there's a case there's an outcry in Chicago, not necessarily Yonkers, but there's an outcry in Chicago that food pantries that were traditionally for senior citizens, African Americans, and indigenous poor people, that's a poor choice of words, but our native low income are now being usurped by the migrant population, and people are saying, look, you know, we go to get food at a food pantry at 10 a.m. and by the time we get there, all the food is gone. So how is that resolved between the two groups?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what I was saying about the U.S. government doing a better job of investing in the U.S. economy and the people of the U.S. But be mindful that you just made a reference to Michigan and then made another reference to Chicago. And you started your question talking about the Middle East. Let's talk about Yonkers. And let's talk about Westchester County and the Bronx. And let's talk about the 16th Congressional District. So we've brought in over $1 billion to our district since we've gotten into office. And that money is being directly invested into the areas of need in the district, which include education, healthcare, mental health, workforce development, affordable housing, childcare, reducing gun violence, and all of the issues that the people tell me are most important to them. When I first got into office, and since I've been in office, when I walk the community, people tell me over and over and over again, there's not enough for our kids to do. There's not enough happening for kids, particularly in Yonkers. So what I did was consistently met with and engaged with the school superintendent at the time, Dr. Quesada, when I first got in, and now the new superintendent, to get a better understanding of what's happening with the school district. I consistently visited and engaged with the YMCA, the YWCA, and the Police Athletic League, just to see what community services and centers were out there. And since we've gotten in, we've invested over $500,000 into the YMCA to help them with their programs. We've invested almost $700,000 in the YWCA to help them with workforce development. We've also invested in St. John's Hospital $1 million to help them improve outcomes for the community that they serve.
And you also, if I just interrupt you for a quick, and you also invested $30,000 into the Nepperhan Community Center.
That's right.
In 2021. Yeah. But the Nepperhan Community Center has just been found to be fraudulent in their financial spending. There's something like $3 million missing, and they haven't filed taxes for 3 years. And one of the years that they had not filed taxes was the same year that you had given them $30,000. So where's the money? The money never went to the people.
Well, again, the Nepperhan Community Center have to answer for that, and they have to be held accountable for that. Much of the stuff that you're talking about happened before my time here.
It happened in 2000. It happened in 2000. There was money given. We gave $30,000 to Nepperhan Community Center in 2020.
Well,
in 2020, they didn't pay taxes.
Well, they're now being investigated, right?
Right.
And they will be held accountable. That's it. And so, what my job is to meet with the community-based organizations, see who's doing good work, and do whatever I can to support their good work. I just named 3 or 4 programs for you, and I'm going to name another one, which is the Yonkers Greenway, which we've invested over $4 million there to help create a walkway and bikeway and green space for areas in Yonkers that have been historically underserved. So while when you look at our entire portfolio, right, if there was an investment that went awry, there's going to be accountability there. But the majority of the resources we brought in for Yonkers are sound resources. In addition to that, it's not just about the money, it's about the relationships and the people that we work with. Yonkers has incredible grassroots organizers and leaders doing tremendous work for the community. Dr. Alexandra Connolly is one example. She is a preeminent scholar in New York State and across the country who does tremendous work for women, for girls, and for education.
I have to interrupt you just for on that point, and also got to put a pitch in for where we are. We are at Dos Marias in downtown Yonkers, where the food is great. If you don't want to cook, come to Dos Marias, and if you want to cook, come to Dos Marias, bring the leftovers home and heat them up. The food is good, folks.
The food is off the chain. Right. It's amazing, and the tostones are particularly good.
So you have it from a consumer. You have it from a consumer and a Yonkers resident. So there it is.
That's right.
We want to get back to climate change, which is important, which we're talking about the Yonkers Greenway. But I want to expand that just a little bit. You have inherited Co-op City in the redistricting issue. Mm-hmm. Co-op City is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe is the largest co-op in New York City.
Yes.
Now, there is a new law that was passed by the NYC City Council, Local Law 97, which has the potential of bankrupting co-ops in New York City. It is part of the Green Deal, not your Green Deal, but it is part of a climate change initiative to retrofit boilers, put in windows that help keep heat in the apartment buildings. But the whole point is that could have a dire impact on your constituents in Co-op City, because it means that they, in the process of retrofitting, then their maintenance could go from $1,200 a month to $1,500, $1,800 a month, and a lot of people just can't afford that. Mm-hmm. So, are you taking any initiative to help people with Local Law 97?
Of course. I mean, do you know my record? So, my entire record is rooted in working with and governing with working class people. That's what Co-op City represents, working class people. Now, again, the law you're referencing is a New York City law, right? It's not a federal law. Right. And so, the city will deal with what they have to deal with, and I will use my voice strategically where needed. But when I first represented Co-op City in 2020, from 2020 to 2022, before they changed it, we helped Co-op City refinance with HUD, helped them cut through all the red tape, and it freed up an additional $100 million for Co-op City to do the actual upgrades and repairs and retrofitting that you're talking about. So we've already worked with them and delivered that $100 million to Co-op City to get them the support they need or whatever repairs they need to make. We also invested an additional $1 million or so to help them with their waterfront space to make it more amenable to quality of life and improving, just a green environment in Co-op City as well.
Are they up to speed now, though? Are they up to speed on Local Law 97, or are they still retrofitting their building?
Well, I'm sure if the law just recently passed, I'm sure they're getting up to speed, and the retrofits don't happen immediately. They have to do the work over time. But climate justice, to your point, has been a priority for our office, and that's why we fought to pass revolutionary, historic federal legislation on that point. So something called the Inflation Reduction Act, which we were a major voice in helping to pass, is making historic investments in climate, $400 billion, which when it's all said and done will be upward close to $1 trillion in climate justice. A place like Co-op City, just like a place like New York City, can go after those federal dollars to help them make this just transition to clean, green, renewable energy. Yonkers can go after the money and is already going after some of the money as well as other parts of the county and other parts of the district. And so the federal money is there, and we're gonna continue to fight to bring in more federal dollars to help everyone transition off our dependency on fossil fuels. We've already also supported.
Well, what about solar energy? I mean, solar panels. The more affluent areas of Westchester have solar panels.
Correct.
And solar panels, the price of the rates are going down. Now, why has there not been more of a push in Yonkers for solar panels?
Well, Yonkers is pushing for renewable energy, but it's not just solar. It's solar, it's wind, it's geothermal.
Where are you going to put wind? Where are you going to put windmills in Yonkers?
There's a variety of places. We'll let the engineers answer that question. But there's a variety of places to put examples of new clean energy in Yonkers. But the other point that I want to make is...
Let him finish.
Yeah. So one of the problems with the Inflation Reduction Act is not providing enough support to low-income communities to help them with the just transition. And that's where our office is coming in, working directly with communities, working directly with constituents, and working with the federal government to make sure we are helping people with this process, and we are adjusting the laws as they come online at the local level so that low-income people with bad credit could be a part of the just transition as well. Last thing I want to say on the climate piece, we also worked at the state level to help the state pass the most revolutionary piece of climate legislation ever in any state. It's called the Building Public Renewables Act. And the Building Public Renewables Act is going to be administered by NYPA, New York Public Authority, and they're going to help the city and the state transition the buildings, which is some of the biggest remitters of dirty energy, to clean energy.
Speaking about buildings, Yonkers has a lot of old buildings, and we see that throughout Westchester, but Yonkers in particular. Affordable housing is an issue and will continue to be an issue in towns across Westchester and in districts in the district that you are now congressman for. I want to transition quickly from Yonkers, which is handling the affordable housing issue, to Mamaroneck, which is
not
in your
quite.
Well, okay, so it's not quite, so hook me up here. Tell me about it.
We need to build more housing, more affordable housing, truly affordable. Not affordable based on Westchester AMI, but truly affordable for working class people. We are working on legislation that will ensure no one pays more than 20% of their salary towards housing. That's the way it should be. How do we get there? We build more housing, bottom line, and don't allow development to happen that gentrifies communities and displaces people.
But then what happens to your tax base? Ben has a question.
Yes.
Not Ben, one audience member has a question.
Yes. Congressman, as you know, this is a live interview, and the point of this is to connect you with the audience who has questions for you.
Okay.
A question just came in from Mr. Prince Robinson, and the point is, what truly separates the Congressman Jamaal Bowman from the other candidates? People are trying to make their minds.
Yeah.
Who should I vote for?
Can we do the affordable housing first, and then and then we'll switch to that? Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to finish affordable housing. Okay. On the affordable, and we'll get to the question on the affordable housing issue. If you have a lot of affordable housing in a town like Yonkers, then what happens to your tax base? Because do you not need middle to upper middle income to be able to have a sufficient tax base in Yonkers to be able to keep the economy running?
So the federal government has disinvested from affordable housing and public housing for 30 years, and it hasn't given a dime to public housing in over 10 years. And HUD has dramatically decreased their budget, and because of that, there are less vouchers available for people, particularly seniors, who get affordable housing. we are working to ramp the federal government's investment in affordable housing up. And there are multiple bills that do this. One is the Green New Deal for public housing, which builds new affordable housing, public social housing, and makes sure that we're not using fossil fuels in doing it. The other is Housing for All, the Housing for All Act, which invests $1 trillion over the next 10 years to make sure that everyone in our country has a home.
America has a problem with affordable housing, a huge problem with affordable housing. There's a controversy raging now about the bunch of people that don't want affordable housing there. And you spoke about the racism that's going on. Talk about that for a minute or two.
Well, there's an incredible program in Mamaroneck called the Community Resource Center, which does a lot of work helping the Latino community specifically and the immigrant community there. And at a local meeting to discuss a few of the affordable housing proposals, someone accosted them in a very racist way. Actually, multiple people accosted them in a very racist way, and it was disgusting and deplorable and unacceptable. And wherever I see racism, sexism, hate, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, whatever it is, I'm going to speak out against it. So I spoke out in defense of not just the great work that the Community Resource Center does, but the need for affordable housing in the entire district and country. And so not only have we brought in millions of dollars for Yonkers to help with affordable housing, we've also brought in millions of dollars from Mamaroneck to help with economic development, which contributes to affordable housing. But one of the main things we've done is we wrote a letter with Senator Elizabeth Warren to President Biden to ask him to take action as it relates to affordable housing, particularly as it relates to rent stabilization and just cause evictions. And so the president finally took action, and he is now freezing rents for certain federally backed mortgages so that they don't go up more than 10% within a year.
What about
that? Hold on. That is directly connected to our advocacy to the president, and it is not something we can brush over. This is huge, not just for Yonkers and the district, but for the country, because landlords were going crazy raising rents, and people weren't able to afford the rent, and they were being evicted unjustly, which is unacceptable.
What about areas like Scarsdale, which is in your district?
Yes.
Which has been rather adverse to affordable housing. There are a lot of Democrats in Scarsdale who advocate for progressive policies, but there's also been the issue of what we don't want affordable housing in Scarsdale, and that's why we have our zoning laws the way they are, which do not allow for multifamily units. So you're giving them money, and these are your constituents in Scarsdale, so how do you convince them that they perhaps may need affordable housing too?
Affordable housing should be built everywhere, Scarsdale included. You know, the separation and segregation in our communities based on class and ultimately race just maintains the hate and the racism and discrimination that continues. When you have certain communities, doesn't matter where they are, saying that they don't want affordable housing, they're also saying they don't want certain working class people in their communities, and they're also saying they don't want certain black and brown people in their communities. Many have said that outright. Others use language like, we don't want the culture of our community to change. And so it's the NIMBY mentality that continues to be persistent, but that's why we need leadership, visionary leadership, to help people understand, you know, we have to start living together, working together, playing together, and going to school together if we're going to deal with the issues of hate and discrimination in our society. And so that's one argument that needs to be made.
Let's get back to the question that we didn't get to when they asked.
Congressman, you know, the goal of this interview is to connect between you and those who vote for whoever they think can do the best job for the county, for the state they will be representing. Many people, as I said earlier, have not made a decision on who. We are watching you on the national TV. We are watching your opposition, two different point of views from two different spectrums. What sets you apart? What can you tell the people that will drive them to believe that you are the best man for this job?
Well, my record speaks for itself. As I mentioned, we brought in $1 billion to the district, and we're investing in the working class communities and communities that have been historically left behind, marginalized, and disenfranchised. We've passed historic pieces of legislation like the resolution banning the Great Replacement Theory, which is a racist white supremacist theory that claims that white people are going to be replaced with black people, Latino immigrants, and Jews. For the first time in history, we introduced that legislation, that resolution, and passed it, and I did that as a freshman. I chaired a committee as a freshman, which is unheard of, and we co-wrote one of the president's largest pieces of legislation, the CHIPS and Science Act, which is going to bring back thousands of jobs to our district, and specifically to the marginalized communities. So our amendments to this piece of legislation is all about community wealth building and worker cooperatives, because we need more jobs in Yonkers, we need more jobs in Mount Vernon, we need more jobs in New Rochelle, we need more jobs in Greenburgh, Portchester, and all of the areas that have been marginalized. We have worked directly with the grassroots on issues of reducing gun violence. So whether it's the SNUG program in Yonkers and Mount Vernon, or the My Brother's Keeper program in New Rochelle, working with amazing people like Sade and Jonathan Alvarez and so many others who are doing grassroots work to transform and end gun violence in our communities. We do that work, working with Charlie Knight at the YWCA to bring in more workforce development program for at-risk people. We are the working class. We come from the working class. I was raised by a single mom, 3 sisters, lived in the projects, lived in rent-controlled apartments. So we govern based on our personal experiences and based on what I did in education before coming here. Let me finish. The other thing is, my opponent is bought and paid for by racist MAGA Republicans who committed an insurrection on the United States Capitol. He is in the pocket of a group called AIPAC that has funded 109 insurrectionists, people who have attacked the Capitol. He has fundraisers being thrown for him by the same people who fundraise for Donald Trump, who is a racist, sexist, who is looking to take away a woman's reproductive right to choose. So my opponent is bought and paid for. He's a career, corrupt politician that is all about pay-to-play politics. He's the kind of politician that got us into this position where we may have a fascist go back into the White House because he's willing to negotiate with racist MAGA Republicans who support an insurrection. We don't take any money from large corporations because we don't want to be beholden to large corporations. We take no money from the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, or any MAGA Trump insurrectionist supporters. We work with the grassroots. We work with the people.
Okay, let's not get into a campaign speech.
You asked me the question.
Okay, but it's an exchange, brother. It's an exchange here. When you talk about Latimer being involved with MAGA Republicans, let's break that down a little bit. Who are these MAGA Republicans that he is allegedly being supported by?
The main organization that supports him is called AIPAC.
Okay.
They are funded by right-wing MAGA racist Republicans who support 109 insurrectionists in Congress. You can look up the names on your own. It's well documented that he's had at least 2 fundraisers with mega Trump donors. These are the people who supported him. Now, we have to ask ourselves the question. I am the first person of color in U.S. history to hold this congressional seat. First black man to hold this congressional seat. I am unapologetic when it comes to speaking up for marginalized people, black and brown people. Unapologetic. Why? Because our people have been left behind for too long. Too long. Why would this so-called lifelong Democrat partner with racist Republicans and an organization, AIPAC, that supports Netanyahu and the genocide of babies in Gaza who are starving to death? Why would this person partner with them to get the first black man out of this congressional seat? People need to ask themselves that question. While at the same time, where's the anti-poverty program that you have put in place from your current position for the communities in our district that have been left behind? Where's the big investments in leadership on affordable housing? Where's the real leadership on the ground to reduce gun violence? Where's the investments in mental health? Where's the investments in education? Understand the difference. As county executive, you have a budget, $2.3 billion budget to invest and manage in the way you see fit. We don't have a budget in Congress. Everything we brought in by hustling, grinding, advocating, and fighting with the working class people.
But let's talk about what has been done in Yonkers so far. You mentioned jobs. There's a big company here, conglomerate almost at this point, Lionsgate, and you toured Lionsgate, and if I'm not mistaken, you liked Lionsgate. You said that Lionsgate had jobs and was employing a lot of Yonkers people. There are a lot of Yonkers people who say, there aren't any jobs at Lionsgate. When you compare the size of Lionsgate to the amount of people that they can employ, there are not a lot of Yonkers people there. Although you say that Lionsgate is doing the right thing.
You please remind me directly of what I said after I toured Lionsgate, because I don't remember saying what you have just said, but that's fine. Please remind me. So yes, I toured Lionsgate. Yes, they have created jobs for Yonkers, but we can't rely on one organization.
It was a tweet, and what you had said was, and I don't have.
That's fine.
But basically.
Here's the point.
Right.
Here's the point. Lionsgate is here.
Yes.
We support Lionsgate being here, and we support Lionsgate employing people from Yonkers. But Lionsgate as one institution is not enough to make sure everyone in Yonkers has a job. We are pushing for a federal jobs guarantee so that everyone in the country who was looking for a job can get a job. See, America used to be a country of big ideas, where we had a vision of what was possible for our country. After World War II, after the Great Depression, with the GI Bill, we built the middle class, mostly for white people. And we didn't allow black and brown people to be a part of that. We invested in the Works Progress Administration to create a federal jobs guarantee. Black and brown people were left out of that. The Green New Deal is about making sure we are investing in communities and people that have been left behind. It is what I did in education for 20 years. When I opened my own school and ran it for 10 and a half years, I hired everyone in that building. I made sure there was equity and opportunity for people from that community as we served thousands of kids over my 10-year career. I'm not talking in theory here. I've already done it in education. And since I've been in Congress only 3 years, you talk to community members, not haters who just want to hate, because there's always some of them. You could talk to them too, but have them respond. Well, the congressman brought in $1 billion and he's invested in these 40-something, 30-something programs directly himself. Take the Westchester Youth Shelter. Combine that with the court innovation program that Judge Rice is implementing in New Rochelle. So shout out to Judge Rice, shout out to Joanne Dunn, Westchester Youth Shelter. Westchester Youth Shelter, I combined them with a CARES program in the city, helped them with $1.65 million so they can provide mental health supports and substance abuse supports to young people who are incarcerated. The Judge Rice program, Court Innovation Program, another $1.2 million so he can help young people who have committed crime, who need to be rehabilitated so that they don't commit a crime again.
Which brings us to the issue of crime and the defund police. I know you stand.
You still talking about this?
Yeah, I know you. Okay. Because, well, as long as there's crime, as long as there's police.
But this is not. But I already know where you're going with the question.
No, just I'm
we
throwing it out to you. Tell me.
When we talked about that was 4 years ago. We still talking about this? We are not going to solve crime only with police. You understand? That's not going to happen. So we have to make sure we are taking a public health approach to public safety. What does that mean? It's the understanding that most of the people incarcerated have been diagnosed with a mental health disability, a substance abuse disorder, or a learning disability, or have had some form of trauma in their lives. If we know that on the back end, that means on the front end, we need to invest in jobs, mental health, and education, and substance abuse. So part of the $1 billion we've brought in, we invest in jobs, substance abuse, mental health, and education.
Well, for clarification,
hold on.
are you saying to move to take money from the police
There's no
budget?
clarification. This is what I've said.
But here, no, there is clarification. Are we saying then
we
do you
cannot,
take money? Are you saying to take money?
I'm about to tell you.
So you take money from the police budget and then put that into mental health. That's all I'm asking.
Well, it's not just mental health. It's mental health, substance abuse, education, and workforce development. I'm being very specific.
Okay.
Because this is what the research tells us works. And guess what? Law enforcement supports this. Because there's so many people in law enforcement who are responding to things that are outside their training. And as a result, you'll have someone with disabilities end up killed because the training is not there. So we have to make sure we're not just investing, and it's not just about law enforcement, it's about jails too. We're investing in police and jails and not rehabilitation or not prevention. So you're underfunding our schools, you're redlining our communities. What's the first thing I said about that people say to me in the community here? Nothing for kids to do. So underfunding our schools, redlining our communities,
but there's
not
30
enough
after-school programs. There are 30 after-school programs.
That's not enough.
In Yonkers.
That's
30
not enough.
after-school programs.
That's not enough, and that's not full-time, and it's not enough investment. My point is very, very simple, okay? And this is the main difference between me and my opponent. We have to invest in working people. We have to invest in marginalized people and communities. We have to invest in children. When we do that, the outcomes when it comes to economic development is going to be astronomical. The outcomes when it comes to decreasing costs for jails is going to be dramatically decreased. And the outcomes in terms of improved health outcomes are going to be dramatically decreased. This is research-based. This has been implemented.
There's a question.
There is a question. Congressman,
yes.
These might not be directly related to your campaign, but my job is to ask the questions, and you can answer them if you decide to do so. January 6th happened years ago, but the consequences of those actions that day are being paid now. The former president calls those that are now serving time and got convicted as hostage and not as criminals. What is your position on that, and what is your opinion on that? Are they hostages or are they criminals?
They're criminals.
Please elaborate, sir.
Elaborate?
Yes. So for those, this is not a question for me. This is a question for those that are watching you. Excuse me, that are watching you, and my vote for you based on your position.
They're criminals. I mean, what are we talking about? They attacked the U.S. Capitol. They killed multiple people. Multiple people died during the insurrection. Many died days after the insurrection. They were seeking out Mike Pence to hang him. They were seeking out Nancy Pelosi and members of Congress to harm and or kill them. The president incited this insurrection at a rally right before it happened. I mean, what are we talking about? These people are criminals and need to be held accountable. And the former president, in my opinion, is also a criminal, which is why he's been indicted multiple times and is facing criminal charges right now, and which is why he's been found liable for sexual assault. And oh, by the way, my opponent is doing fundraisers with the same people who fund this president who facilitated an insurrection. So this is like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a new vision for America where white nationalists are being held accountable and marginalized people and people of color have access and opportunity to the American dream? Because guess what? American dream ain't gonna work until there's equity, access, and opportunity for everybody.
How would you be able to function, shall we say, if Trump is elected as president and you are re-elected as Congressman?
Listen, my life's work is about children and education and helping people. That's my life's work. As long as I'm breathing, I'm going to continue that work. Doesn't matter who the president is. And this is not about a campaign. Again, I come from single mom, public housing, public schools, I working class, crack cocaine epidemic, first in my family go to college. I was in education for 20 years, opened my own school. I have a doctorate in education, so I'm actually Dr. Jamaal Bowman. Ran for Congress, won, and now we're in Congress causing so much good trouble, like John Lewis said, that I have an opponent partnering with Republicans and genociders to get me out of office.
How's your relationship with Biden?
It's great, it's fine.
Is there any pushback on some of your issues between
No.
yourself and the president, or is he on board with you?
On board. See, what my opponent and others don't understand is anyone at the level of a president appreciates being challenged and pushed. I appreciate being challenged and pushed as well, so that I could be a stronger representative for my district. I don't appreciate lies, and I don't appreciate games, and I don't appreciate politics for the sake of politics. I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant. And so people who've been in politics 30 years, 40 years, they play the game of politics. And this is why black and brown people don't have nothing. This is why women are still fighting for their rights after all these years. Because we got people in office for 20, 30 years just playing politics. Everybody voting the same. The president took action to ban ghost guns to reduce gun violence because we wrote him a letter with 6 things he can do to decrease gun violence in our country. And we did it after a young 15-year-old kid, I think 16-year-old kid, was shot and killed in New Rochelle. See, that's the difference. When we're in community, we're on the ground, we're with the people. We learn what's going on, we understand what's going on, then we take action. Legislatively, through advocacy, through money, and then we help our district and the country. So banning ghost guns didn't just help our district, it helped the country. Freezing rents for certain federally backed mortgages didn't just help our district, it helped the country.
When you say we, are you referring
My
to
office.
Okay, so because I'm just trying to understand, because you've been labeled, you've been associated with being a member of the squad. So when you say we, does that mean that we as a squad or we as the office? Because where is your identity? Is your identity?
I'm a black man in America.
All right. But is your
That's
identity,
my identity.
But politically, is your
I'm
identity?
A black man in America.
But here
you
again,
know what that means? I'm a black man of conscience in America.
Here again, what I'm saying is part of your political identity with the squad, or your identity is, as you say, Jamaal Bowman, a black man in America and a progressive politician?
So let me go back, okay?
Okay.
When I say we, here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about my office, which is an incredible district office, okay? We've closed tens of thousands of cases. responded to hundreds of thousands of phones and emails. We've gotten over $8 million back to people in the district through the IRS. We've helped people reconnect with their families through immigration proceedings. We've helped people with passports. My office is phenomenal. So when I say we, I'm talking about my office. When I say we, I'm also talking about the district, the community. So I mentioned Joanne Dunn, I mentioned Alexandra Connolly, I mentioned Charlie Knight, I mentioned Sade, I mentioned Judge Rice. I can mention Mayor Nikki Armacost from Hastings-on-the-Hudson, Jane, the town supervisor in Mamaroneck, you name it, Omari Andino from Tuckahoe, Nancy Kabulian, Mayor in Ardsley. We've worked directly with them to come up with proposals to bring them resources to help them improve their communities. YMCA in New Rochelle, Boys and Girls Club New Rochelle, School District in New Rochelle and Mount Vernon and New York City. We helped build a Bronx Health Community Network. I'm saying this off the top of my head. I have no notes. You know why? Because we've done the work. When you do the work, you don't need notes. You just say it off the top of your head. Anyway, so when I say we, I'm talking about my office. When I say we, I'm talking about the district that we work in collaboration with. And I'm talking about the people in Congress who are aligned with us. Squad is first and foremost aligned with my position as it relates to politics. But it's not just squad members. It's many in Congress who believe that our country has to do better for working class people. That's the bottom line.
On funding for, let's move from the local level back to the international level. Where do you stand on funding for Israel and funding for the Ukraine, and what happens after this war is over? Both wars, but right now the prevalent war is the war in Israel. What happens?
If I was in control and I was in charge and I was the president, so we just funded to provide Ukraine with additional funding and support as they push back against fascist dictator maniac Putin. So we just voted to support funding for Ukraine. And we voted against sending more money to Israel because right now Israel is engaging in war crimes against the people of Gaza. And so until that stops with a permanent ceasefire and humanitarian aid coming in and a state for the Palestinians, a true freedom for the Palestinians, then we're not going to support funding for Israel.
But there's a lot of speculation that there'll never be a two-state solution.
Well, that's part of the problem. And how are we ever going to get there if we're not holding Netanyahu accountable? If we're just allowing him to do what he wants to do. But see, for me, this is not just about the Middle East, and it's not just about Israel. We have a foreign policy that is rooted in war. And what we do is we use our military might to threaten countries to do what we want them to do while hurting the global South, which is mostly black and brown countries. It's a foreign policy rooted in Western hegemony, imperialism, and racism. And it was built on the American experiment that started with the genocide of Native Americans, the enslavement of Africans, and the colonization of the continent of Africa. And so when we talk about reparations, we talk about a process of truth, racial justice, and repairing the harms of the past so that we can build a better future. We have a world right now where 9 million kids die every year from curable diseases and lack of access to clean water. In a country in a world with so much wealth.
I think we have a question.
Like I said, my life's work is about children. And so I cannot support a foreign policy that allows 9 million kids, mostly black and brown, to die every year from lack of access to clean water or health care or foods.
Congressman?
Yes.
I just have an email here addressing the immigration issue. We had a bill not long ago that was going to address and fix many of the issues that we currently have with immigration. The former president told the House not to pass it, not to fix anything. Are they interested in fixing the immigration issue? Are they using the immigration issue in order to probably be reelected?
Well, they're using it. And the reason why we're not going to address it is because Republicans are in control of the House. Republicans are not interested in governing. We had the least productive year in Congress last year than that's been had in U.S. history. Last year was the least productive Congress. It took them 17 votes to get to the first speaker. Then they vacated that speaker. Then it took us another 8 or 9 votes, I believe, to get to the next speaker. And now they're talking about vacating this speaker. They don't want to govern. So my opponent partnering with a party who doesn't want to govern and literally wants to destroy the federal government and is racist is preposterous and despicable, in my opinion. But they don't want to govern. They're listening to Trump. And, you know, and this is important to be said. I don't even think words can describe how dangerous Donald Trump is to our country. He had a test run his first 4 years. When he comes back, he's going to be full dictator. And listen to what he says and watch what he's already done. He's called African nations shithole countries. He said he will do mass deportation of immigrants, especially the brown ones. He said he will put together a Muslim ban once again. And he will deal with the radical far left, whoever that may be. And so this is who this man is. And his incompetence led to how many hundreds of thousands of people dying from COVID if he would have took it seriously from the very beginning. It's also important for people to know that the majority in counties and states where Republicans are in leadership, gun violence is worse and life expectancy and outcomes are worse. And so this whole infatuation with the president and, oh, we can relate to him because of persecution, no. Black and brown people are persecuted because we black and brown. It's not because we're unjustly, he's being justly persecuted because he's been indicted for actual crimes.
Now, since you spoke just now about gun violence, this is a question from someone who is not a fan of yours, Donna Nolan. Do you know Donna? The mother of Michael Nolan.
Yes.
Okay, this is what she says. What about the ones that you say nothing about that die every single day of illegal gun violence on our streets?
Yeah, if you think I say nothing about whoever that is, Donna Nolan.
She's the mother of a young man who was killed, who was shot in Yonkers.
Madam Donna Nolan is incorrect in saying that I say nothing about people who die from illegal gun violence. Like, in terms of, I mentioned the ghost gun killing that happened in New Rochelle. That was illegal. I talked about the work I did in that community after that killing, bringing millions of dollars to the school district and the Boys and Girls Club to support at-risk young people and at-risk families, and writing a letter to the president that led to him banning ghost guns. That's directly related to illegal gun deaths. I worked with Governor Hochul to bring in $40 million to the district to deal directly with the issue of gun violence by investing in violence interruption programs, like Brother to Brother, like SNUG, like 914 United, and like many others. I mean, literally all of my work as it relates to gun violence deals with the issue of illegal guns. And oh, by the way, we met with NYPD, ATF, federal and local officials to understand the issue of gun trafficking a lot better so that we could do better in that area. And as a result of the President's executive action, as well as the Safer Communities Act, we've stopped more gun traffickers over the last year than we ever did before. And so that's part of my life's work as well.
But you're also in favor of bail reform. And we've all seen countless times where some thug will commit a crime and gets out, there's no bail, and then he or she is right back on the street, and then they kill somebody. Where if there was proper bail, perhaps they would not have gotten out, and perhaps they would not have committed the crime.
Listen,
Murder.
anyone who commits a crime needs to be held accountable. That's number one. Number two, bail reform is designed so that people who are poor and they commit low-level crimes don't go to jail because they can't afford bail because they're poor, especially if it's a low-level crime. Third, when you look at the statistics, the vast majority of people, well over 80% or 90%, I believe, gotta get the exact numbers, who benefit from bail reform don't commit additional crimes. There are some who do. And we need to look at that and figure out how to do better next time so that that doesn't happen. And so it's not, we got to stop thinking in binaries, right? We got to stop thinking bail reform, no bail reform. You know, this or that. It can't just be binaries. There's nuance to everything. And the number one thing is, how do we keep the majority of people safe? And so when I meet with law enforcement and they tell me, oh, this person's 19, they've been arrested 15 times. Or this person's 25, they've been arrested 40 times. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a minute. And it's not on law enforcement to do by themselves. And this is what I said before. When someone is arrested, what's in place to make sure that person isn't arrested again? What's in place in terms of jail, prison, and community to make sure that person isn't arrested again? We don't have a system like that. I'm looking to build a system like that.
But there are people that are saying that there were people who would take that statement and say that you're soft on crime. I mean, let's face it. There are criminals that are never going to be rehabbed. They're just psychopaths, and they need to be in jail.
Yes.
And they keep being recycled back out on the street to do the exact same thing. And no matter how much bail reform you're going to do, you're never going to get these people to see the light. So
again, bail reform is for people who commit low-level crimes who can't afford bail. It's not for the psychopath, quote unquote, to use your term, who commits a serious crime and needs to be held accountable and stay in jail for long. It's not. That's not what bail reform is.
Okay.
I'm talking about bail reform and criminal justice reform. There are many people who have done low-level crimes who are in jail without any rehabilitation. Those people are more likely to commit crimes again and be back in again because they're being nurtured, for lack of a better term, for recidivism. It's a military-industrial complex, right? So keep people in and out, in and out, in and out, as opposed to rehabilitating people and keeping them out, which, by the way, if we did a better job on that, they would be contributing to the economy and society a lot more than they currently are.
Ben, do we have a question? Okay, we are coming to the end of our interview with Congressman Jamaal Bowman, who is up for re-election. This is Yonkers Voice. Congressman, thank you so much. Do you have any parting words you want to give to the audience? Anything you want to say?
No, it's good to be with you. Thank you so much for having
and
me.
thank you.
Yes, remember everyone, make sure you go out and vote June 25th. Early voting starts June 15th. So go out early and vote. Make sure you cast your ballot for Jamaal Bowman. If you support the working class, if you support reducing gun violence, if you support women's reproductive freedom, if you support affordable housing and dealing with the issue of inequality, discrimination, marginalization, and racism, and if you care about a democracy and a humanity that engages and encourages all people to be a part of it, please vote for Jamaal Bowman. Peace and love to you all. Thank you so much.
Coming up this Wednesday, we will have New York State Senator Shelley Meyer on Wednesday at around 11 a.m. And Friday, Westchester County Legislator George Latimer. Don't forget to tune in, ask your questions, engage, and vote based on information. Thank you for watching. Until next time.